Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on how to write a better email appeal in 9 simple steps with Nathan Hill. Today's webinar was made possible by Nathan and our other friends at Next After. My name's Delaney. I'm the Director of Partnerships here at Nonprofit Hub and Do More Good. We're so glad that you're joining us today. As everyone gets logged in and comfortable, please introduce yourselves and let us know where you're watching from and what organization you work with. As you know, we typically do an icebreaker, and today the icebreaker was inspired by a recent hardship. And I know Nathan and everyone's going to laugh at me, but I ran out of whiteout last week. And I really thought at that moment that I was going to have to take the entire day off because I cannot function without it. I bought the biggest bulk package of whiteout that I could find on Amazon. And I've never been so excited for a delivery in my life. So today we want to know, what is the one office supply you cannot live without? Nathan, what is yours?
I have been so focused on the whiteout thing that I have not thought about my own answer. And the only reason I laugh is I laugh because it's just like unique and quirky, and I think that's awesome. I haven't thought about whiteout in years, let alone used whiteout. I don't know. Favorite office supply for me is peanut M&Ms. Because when they're gone, it's chaos, and everybody's looking for the peanut M&Ms. And I found them in one of our conference rooms the other day. Like the big thing had been emptied into a bowl and was just hiding in a conference room. But I have to have them.
Okay, peanut M&Ms. Got it.
I don't know if they count as office supplies, but we stock them. So
yeah, I see a lot of people are all about their Post-it notes. Had some that need their highlighters, notepads. Let's see here.
Colors of the rainbow markers.
I know some people have a thing about pens, like they have to order the same type of pen.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Let's see.
Gel pens, look at that.
I haven't heard that since high school. I love that. Cool.
Nina's a fan of the blue G2 pens. Those just make my handwriting look horrible. I use them and I like them, but it just ends up being just scribbles.
Oh no, I haven't heard of those ones. Let's see. Ooh, someone said the Nespresso machine. I have to agree. That is awesome.
Yep.
Gotta have coffee. That totally counts as an office supply. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for sharing. For those of you that are just joining, we're about to learn how to write a better, more effective fundraising email. Before we jump into today's content, I want to take a minute just to go over some housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, and you'll hear from us later today with the full recording, the presentation, and any other resources that Nathan talks about. You're encouraged to engage with us throughout the session by using the chat and answering the poll questions. We always do a giveaway at Nonprofit Hub webinars. So if you attend for the full hour, use the chat and answer the poll question, you'll be in the running to get a free virtual pass or in-person pass to Cause Camp this May, which is less than 1 month away. And no matter what kind of pass you choose, we'll send you the ultimate Cause Camp swag bag, which maybe has some of the office supplies that you guys can't live without in it. If you don't win today's giveaway, you can still purchase your pass to Cause Camp. Feel free to check out the conference website at www.cause.camp. Questions are very welcomed. There will be a live Q&A at the end of the webinar, and our team always keeps track of all of those questions that you guys have during the session, and then we'll do our best to answer them all at the end. Quick shout out to our amazing platform partner, FireSpring. They create tools and resources that make fundraising easier and more effective. From mission-driven websites to engaging marketing programs that work, they have tools you need to highlight your nonprofit and shine as a leader. Today's webinar was made possible by Next After, and today we're grateful to welcome back Nathan. Next After is a research lab, digital-first agency, and training institute that helps nonprofits grow their digital fundraising. And I'd love to introduce you all to the teacher of today's session, Nathan Hill. And although he may not need an introduction, he's been teaching nonprofit webinars since I joined the team last May, and his reputation preceded him then. Nathan Hill is the Vice President of Marketing for Next After. He's trained thousands of nonprofit marketers and fundraisers in proven online fundraising strategies, including professionals at PBS, Save the Children, the Humane Society, and more. Nathan, welcome back.
Thank you so much. You are too kind in that intro. I am thrilled to join you today because these are my favorite webinars to teach with with all of you. There's something about all of you who are following Nonprofit Hub and in the weeds into content, trying to figure out how to grow, giving and fundraising, and figure out how to improve your nonprofit, grow your impact. There's just a spirit about you that's always really fun to be a part of. So thank you to all of you for being here. Hopefully I don't waste a moment of your time from here on out. I'm going to start sharing my screen and hopefully share my slides here. Let me know, maybe Delaney, give me a thumbs up if you can see those.
Yes, I will let you know. Got it.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's jump in. Again, thank you so much for being here. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. I think largely because I send a lot of emails myself, even if they're not email appeals. I'm sending out lots of emails for Next After, trying to share as many tools and resources and learnings about what works to grow giving with you as I possibly can. So I spend my days writing emails quite a lot. And so it's a great topic. It's a fun topic to dive into. I want to share just like a bit of a disclaimer before we get into the details, because we're certainly going to walk through these 9 steps to writing a more effective email appeal. But I need you to know, and I'm sure you know this, but let's just be reminded together, there is no one single way to write an email appeal. There is no ultimate magic formula for writing the perfect copy at the perfect length with the perfect word choice and the ultimate layout that's going to lead to magical donations for you and your organization and growing your impact. There's just not. That's not how it works. There's so much nuance in how you go craft an email fundraising appeal or an appeal of any sort. But what this template is going to do that we're going to walk through is going to give you a tool that you can use every single time you sit down to write an email appeal that's going to help you think about tested and proven principles and strategies that have a high likelihood of increasing your email fundraising results. So I can't tell you exactly who should send your email. I can't tell you exactly what your call to action can be or should be, but we can look at some experimentation to give you tested principles to help you lead to better results. So there's my disclaimer. Let's dive in. And I want to start with a quick story. It's really more of an example than a story, but it's an email that I received a little bit before Giving Tuesday, 3 weeks before Giving Tuesday this past year. And I'm not going to drag this organization through the mud. I'm trying to hide their identity because I think this organization is incredible and doing awesome work. But I want to walk you through my experience receiving this email and what sort of my internal monologue was. Because I think it's really critical for us as communicators and fundraisers and marketers to understand the experience that someone has when they receive our emails. The email recipients are not us. We have a lot of insider knowledge and we know all the brand language we're using and what it means, what we're trying to do with it. Your potential donor does not. They're receiving it cold. They're coming in at face value, looking at your subject line, sender name, preview text to decide, should I give the time of day to open this email? So let's look at this email together. The subject line says, add us, the organization, add us to your giving equation this Giving Tuesday. The sender name is the name of the organization. And then it says in the preview text, view this email in your browser. This Giving Tuesday, add our organization to your giving equation. Hi, Nathan, we're only 3 weeks away from Giving Tuesday. This is all I've got to work with to decide, do I want to open this email or not? Here's what happened in my brain. Number one, I read giving equation and I see that it's capitalized like it's a proper noun, it's a title of something. What's my giving equation? I didn't know that I have a giving equation. Maybe there's organizations I give to, but is that part of my equation or is that something different? I don't know what this is, number one. Secondly, you're talking about Giving Tuesday, and Giving Tuesday at this point was still like 3 weeks away. Like I'm thinking about it in terms of what content are we creating at Next After to help equip you for a better Giving Tuesday, but I'm not thinking about it really for myself. Maybe that's the intention, but it feels like this is like weeks down the road. There's so much that's going to happen between now and then still. And then you're asking me to do something for you that I don't quite understand. I don't quite understand how it's relevant to me yet. So it'd be nice if you said, please, if you're asking me to do something, you're just telling me in the subject line to go add us to your giving equation. I get down here and I see that it's sent from just the name of the organization. And so I think, well, this is probably marketing because no human being is sending there's no human conversation that I'm having in an email that's sent from a brand name or from a company or from an organization name. So is this marketing? Probably. Is it something I care about? Probably not, because it's just trying to get me to do something. I get to the preview text, and at this point is where I'm sort of validating my assumptions so far. And it says, view this email in your browser, which is a dead giveaway that this is a marketing email of some sort. And I assume probably just a newsletter. Most newsletters have that at the top, so you can go view it online because there's lots of graphics and stuff that maybe don't load properly in the inbox. So I'm going to go to my browser and look at the full email there. So probably just marketing, probably just a newsletter. Then talking about Giving Tuesday again. Add our organization to your equation. Still, I'm like, I don't know what the giving equation is, and what does this have to do with me? This just sounds like something that you want. Well, how is it relevant or valuable to me? I don't know. And then reading on, you start to see the real copy. We're only 3 weeks away from Giving Tuesday. And so again, I'm affirming what I thought before, which is that, yeah, only 3 weeks? That feels like a long time, and I'm not quite ready to think about that yet. That's my internal monologue. And I'm not everyone, and I don't have the results of this email, but I want you to get in this mindset of seeing your emails from the perspective of the recipient. They don't have the insider knowledge to know what the giving equation is or why you need to be this prepared for what's coming on Giving Tuesday, or building a relationship in the inbox. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to respond to human beings, not just a brand name or organization. So that's what's going on in my head. And I want to pause for a second. Open your chat box, if you will, and let me know, what do you think the call to action of this email is going to be? Just given the subject line, the sender name, and the preview text, what is the call to action? I see Kelly says a donate button. Eileen says a donate button. Someone says add us, save the date, give to us, make your donation now. Karen says nothing, assuming no call to action whatsoever. Try to remember us on Giving Tuesday. Gerald says do too many things. Yeah, so we're all kind of along the same line. Something related to giving or saving the date to give, but ultimately moving towards a donation type of call to action. That's what I assumed too. Here's what the email looks like when you actually open it up. And again, we're not going to read all the copy. I don't want to drag this organization through the mud, but I want to just show you some of the highlights here. Here's what it looked like at the top. You've got this little graphic thing at the top, this Giving Tuesday, add us to your giving equation. I'm scrolling through because I'm not really that engaged at this point. I just wanted to figure out, like, what are they even talking about? And down at the bottom, there's a learn more call to action, which makes me think, oh, like, you're not actually asking me for a donation. You're asking me to go learn more about, some other nonprofits and ways that I can get involved this Giving Tuesday. But you're not asking me to give. That's not what I expected. I scroll a little bit further down. Oh, there's the donation ask. It actually says support this organization. But now you've given me 2 different calls to action. So which one do you actually want me to do? Do you want me to go learn more about this thing over here? Or do you want me to go give you a gift? And now I don't know what's actually important. So most likely I'm going to bail and go back because I'm too confused and too thrown off by what you've been communicating to me so far. This is a really common experience. I bet if you opened your inbox right now, you'd go find several emails, whether from a nonprofit or from a for-profit, that are just as confusing. Or they've set some expectations up front in the subject line, the preview text, and then you're thrown off once you get into the email. You don't know what they want you to do or how it's relevant to you in the first place. And so what we're going through today is a clear framework based on data, based on testing, and based on real results that you can use to provide some level of clarity to the recipient, putting yourself in their shoes, using empathy to put your best foot forward and ultimately lead to greater giving. At Next After, we do one primary thing, which is we help nonprofits grow their digital fundraising. We do that in a few ways, in 3 ways actually. One, we conduct research to see what are nonprofits doing, and then we put those ideas to the test to see what actually works to grow results. We work with a select number of nonprofits on a daily basis through our digital first agency, where we're running these A/B tests and experiments to decode what works to grow giving. And then ultimately, we turn these learnings into training, like this webinar, as well as some other courses that we have to equip you as best we can with what works to inspire greater generosity. And over time, over the past 10 years, we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary in May, we've run, at this point, over 3,300 online fundraising experiments, where we're A/B testing different ideas and tactics and variables to figure out what actually works to get more people to say yes. We do so with a wide variety of organizations. And we use the same type of email appeal template to achieve results like this. Like, this is a strategy that we're using beyond just A/B testing, but using this personalized email approach that we're going to walk through to achieve things like this. With this organization, they've grown from 800,000 in revenue to 9.5 million from 2015 to 2020, and even further beyond there. So that's what I want you to have in mind as we walk through this template, is that everything is based on data, testing, and real results. So let's look at element number one, and that is the sender name. Who should you send it from? I would encourage you to send from a real human being, a believable human being, because something we always say here at Next After is that people give to people, not to marketing machines, not to faceless organizations, but they give to real human beings that they have a relationship with. So we need to send from a person. In this case, the template just says Jane Doe, but you see even the reply email address is from a real person. It's not like a marketing address. It's building trust by sending from an authentic human being. Here's an experiment example. Compassion International, you may be familiar with them. This is the control email that they sent out, sent from the name of their organization. You see the subject line says, Compassion Go, travel to the US, and the preview text says, Dear John, stressed out from the endless search for a job that best utilizes your passions? Sounds like they're moving into a marketing pitch. Version B takes a very different approach. The same call to action is in the email. It's driving towards the same outcome, but the approach was very different. It was humanized. Number one, it was sent from a real person, Audrey Wishall. But if you're going to send from a person and you want it to be believable and authentic, you need to write it like it's from a real person, and you need to design it like it's from a real person. So now the subject line says, quick question, which sounds a lot more warm and authentic and conversational. And then the preview text maybe has room for improvement, but it's certainly better than the control in terms of being more warm and personal. Hi, John. How would you feel about an opportunity with an amazing nonprofit that will pay for you to travel? It sounds a little bit more conversational. And what they saw by taking this personalized approach, even just here in the sender, subject, and preview text, was a 330% increase in opens. Now, I can't guarantee results for you. I can't promise you that if you change your sender name, you're going to see this open rate. But if you take this personalized approach, what we have seen over time is you're going to see better results, both in opens as well as in donations, which is really ultimately what we're trying to improve. But it's not always just about sending from a person. Sometimes it's about sending from the right person. So in this experiment, this organization sent from the president of Buckner International. That's the nonprofit. Sender name is Albert Reyes. Version B is the exact same email, same exact copy, same exact call to action, same exact value proposition. The difference was that they sent from a different person. They sent from Joanne Cole. And Joanne, in this case, is the vice president of Buckner Children and Family Services. Now, I'll show you the result here. Joanne actually led to a 150% increase in donations, which is fascinating. All they did was change the sender. There's nothing different about these emails. All they did was change the sender. They're already sending from a human being, so how can you see such a dramatic change in results? And what I'd submit to you is, number one, it's a human, but number two, it's a more believable sender. The president of an organization, particularly of a large one, probably doesn't have the time to go sit down and write donor emails on a consistent basis. But someone who's a vice president, maybe a rung lower at the organization, might have more time and capacity to focus on that. So from that perspective, it might just be a more believable sender. But then beyond that, she might be the best person to talk about this topic, because the copy is telling this story of impact. And who better to tell the story than someone that actually oversees that direct work? Maybe the president isn't the best person to tell the story. It's actually Joanne, because she's seeing the work firsthand. So it's a human being, it's a more believable sender, and it's probably the better sender to tell the story. So again, I can't tell you exactly who should send your emails, but consider sending from a human being, sending from a believable human being, and then take some time every time you write these email appeals to think about who's the best person to be saying this? Who's the best person to be making this specific appeal? Most of the time, it's probably not the founder, the president, or the CEO. It's probably someone closer to the actual programs and on the ground doing the work. There's number one. Let's jump to number two, which is the subject line. And there is so much that we could talk about related to the subject line. But here's what I want you to take away today, at least, is that the goal of the subject line is obviously to get someone to open. Not all opens are the same. We want to get opens that ultimately lead towards donations. You can do things to get more opens that don't actually impact the results you want. So we want more opens that lead to the outcome we care about, which is giving and donations. And I want you to think about two things next time you write one of these subject lines, which is, number one, you want your subject line to communicate value. I, as the recipient, need to know that there's something valuable inside of this email that's worth me not just hitting archive and moving on to try to get to inbox 0 or get to whatever meeting or project is next on my plate. What is the value to me? And secondly, it needs to spark curiosity. We can't give away everything in the subject line and exactly what the call to action is, because then you don't give yourself the opportunity to explain the value of it. I'll show a couple examples for you. Number one, this email is exactly the same call to action, same value proposition, same sender. Sent from National Breast Cancer Foundation. The sender name is Candace Bowick. So subject lines are different. Version A says, stay informed about your breast health. Version B says, a new early detection guide. Which one of these things do you think is actually more valuable? Version A is a little bit passive. It's just information that I can get about my breast health. Version B is something I can take action on. It's a new guide that I can use right away. So I feel the value in the subject line because I can take action immediately. And by adding that little bit more value, it led to a 15.8% increase in email opens. So consider that. How do we present value in our subject lines? But secondly, we don't want to give everything away. Version A and version B are both leading to the same offer, but they're presented very differently. Version A says, study the Gospel of John with DTS. You know exactly what you're getting in this email from the subject line. You know what the call to action is. The call to action is study the Gospel of John with DTS. Now, you don't know if it's like an application to go apply to attend the school and study that way, or if it's, in this case, it's ultimately a free course that you could take. So you don't know the specifics, but you know the premise of the call to action. Version B is different. It says a special gift from Dallas Theological Seminary, which has a whole lot more mystery to it. It's valuable that I'm getting a gift, and it's a special gift from an organization that I trust. I'm inclined to open it to find out what is that gift. And then I have the opportunity in the copy to actually explain why someone should study the Gospel of John with DTS. Or version A, I never get the opportunity unless they open the email. But you're asking someone to decide right there in the subject line, do I want this or no? And here's what they saw. Was adding more mystery led to more opens, which gives you more opportunity to explain why someone should take the course. 37% increase in email opens. So add some value, and make sure you don't give everything away. If you want to dive deeper on subject lines, you can grab this worksheet at nextafter.com/subject line worksheet. You can scan that QR code if you want. You can get this. It'll walk you through 5 different mental levers to consider as you craft your subject lines. And we can send that link out too. Let's move on to number 3, and that's the preview text. This one's actually really, really simple. Sometimes we overthink this. We want to write really intentional preview text that showcases what's coming in the email and using all of our marketing language and our best copywriting skills to craft something beautiful in the preview text. But here's what I'd encourage you to do. Don't customize it at all. I would take this template where you're writing more of a plain text style email. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But I would take this template and just let it pull in the natural copy. Let it pull in the first line of text from your email. Don't customize it. And let me show you why. In this experiment, this was actually sent from us at Next After from my friend Brady. The subject line says, Jane, I have a special, spicy, and movie-themed update for you. The preview text. Happy Friday, Jane. I hope you had a good week. Wanted to share a few of our latest posts with you. That's just the normal copy being pulled into the preview text. But we thought, because we think we're clever marketers, that we should showcase what are these latest posts that you're going to find out more about in this email. What's really the core value here? Let's put it in the preview text. Instant donation pages, email subject lines, what I learned from signing up for 152 email lists. It's showcasing what content is actually in the email. But here's what we saw. This actually led to a 9% decrease in people opening the email. And again, I would submit to you that this is because people are looking to engage with real human beings in the inbox. Version B here, the custom preview text, looks and smells like marketing. I know from this preview text that you are just wanting to get me to do something. You are a marketer that is essentially trying to sell me something, even if that product is a free offer of some sort. So I'm not going to engage with that. I want to engage with people that I know and trust and that are authentic. So don't customize your preview text. Now let's move on to the actual body of the email. This has direct implications for your preview text. How do you start your email? I would encourage you, number one, to say hello. just like a friend talking to a friend, a real conversation. Say hello, call them by name. People love to hear their name. And if you have a real relationship with someone, you call them by name. You don't just call them friend, or worse, first name, if you forget to set up your first name tag. And then I would start with a warm greeting as well. Let's look at some experiments that show why this can be powerful. This experiment is one of my favorites because these emails are exactly the same. All the copy is exactly the same. The sender is the same. Subject line, the same. Call to action, the same. There are 2 words that are different, and I'll highlight them for you. Version B says hi. It says hello, and it calls the person by name. Hi, Jeff. And just simply by saying hello and by calling the recipient by their name, it led to a 270% increase in clicks. 270% more people clicking through to consider actually giving just because you called them by their name. So this is so simple. Call someone by name when you email them. But secondly, I would start with some sort of warm greeting, being authentic in your tone and in your conversation. Here's both emails here side by side. You see they're different emails. The primary difference is that version B is taking a more humanized, warm, and friendly approach to the copy. Not just in one line, but actually holistically. But I'll highlight just the intros for you. Version A says this. If I had to describe the purpose of DTS in one phrase, it would be this: teach truth and love well. You don't have to know all the nuances of DTS and their brand to pretty much assume that teach truth and love well is some sort of brand slogan. And most often people don't talk with brand language. They talk like real human beings. Version B is a little bit warmer. A little bit warmer. Maybe there's more room for growth, but it's certainly better. It says, my office affords me a fantastic view of the campus where I can see students engaged in study and conversation, walking to and from class. It sounds more like a story that's warm and friendly and engaging. And by taking that approach throughout the copy, it led to a 277% increase in clicks. So take this warm approach. Start by calling someone by their name, saying hello, using a warm and friendly greeting to draw them in and engage with an authentic person in the inbox. You're going to see better results from that. Let's get into the meat of it here. This next chunk I'm going to roll together. So number 5 is you need to explain the problem, and then you need to propose a solution, number 6, and then number 7, you need to articulate the donor's impact. And I want to roll these all up together into what we call the value proposition. This is sort of the core of your appeal. Why are you even emailing in the first place? What's the impact that somebody can make? The value proposition really answers this question: why should I give to you rather than some other organization, or even at all? Because I don't have to give. That's the core value proposition question. And there are 4 different elements that you can use as you craft your value proposition to make it more effective, to really drive it home with a donor, to help them lean in and say yes to giving. We don't have time today to fully unpack the value proposition, but I'll show you these 4 different elements so you can think about these as you're writing your copy. Number 1, the appeal. This really asks the question, how badly do I, the ideal donor, want to make this type of an impact or want to see this problem solved? Is this irrelevant to me? Or is this like the reason I exist? This is a huge problem that I believe needs to be solved, and I believe you can do it. What's the appeal? That's number 1. And that's one of the most important factors. If you don't have high appeal, adding some of these other elements won't really be that effective. So we got to start with appeal. Secondly, exclusivity. This answers the question of, can I get this somewhere else, or can I make this impact somewhere else? Worst case, anywhere else. We want to make sure that we're using copy and language and crafting a value proposition that's unique. What differentiates you from some other similar organization that's working in a similar space, serving a similar cause? What's your unique approach? What are your unique programs that are making an impact? We have to be exclusive. And donors are also going to compare you to organizations that do different work. Because if I have a limited capacity to give, I'm trying to figure out, where can I make the most impact on something that I care about? So I'm going to compare you to even an organization over here that does something totally different. So we have to be exclusive. And then we also have to be clear. We have to have clarity. Clarity answers this question: how quickly and how easily do I understand what you're saying? Do I have clarity about what the problem is that you want to see solved in the world that you're asking me to help with? Do I have clarity about what the solution is? Do I have clarity about what my role is to play as the donor? Does it take me a while to think about it? Say, I think I get what they're saying. Or is it an instant, clear understanding? I would encourage you not to be overly persuasive in your copy, but I would lean into clarity first. And then fourth, credibility. You can have high appeal, you can have high exclusivity, you can be clear, but is what you're saying believable? Even if it is true, do I believe it? Maybe you're saying, making claims that seem outlandish, but you could actually back them up with data. What are you doing to boost credibility and build trust? Maybe more importantly, how do you build trust with the potential donor? Do I believe what you're claiming is true? Because if I don't believe it, I'm going to walk away. So there's your 4 elements, but let's walk through these 3 next steps at a little bit closer detail. Number 1, as you get into the core of your appeal, I want you to explain what the problem is to be solved. Because if there is no problem to solve, there is no reason to give. Why do you need my money if there's no clear problem? So we have to explain that. And you probably need more than a sentence to articulate what the problem is. What's kind of at the core of why your organization exists? Who are you trying to serve? What's the problem you see in the world? You might even need a few paragraphs to articulate what the problem is. And once you've done so, you can then move into number 6, which is proposing a solution. The solution to your problem might be huge, especially if you're working in something like, say you're trying to impact climate change. What's the real solution there? It's probably not something short, sweet, and simple. It might be a really broad vision for how to craft a solution. And that's okay. So you might need a couple sentences, you might need a couple paragraphs to really articulate what that solution is. But then what we ultimately have to do is bring the donor into that solution. What is my role to play? Because if I'm giving a $50 gift, that's not going to solve climate change. You know, what's my role to play? What does my $50 gift do? What types of things is it going to go towards that are going to make an impact towards solving the problem? So who is my gift going to help? What kinds of services is it going to provide? How quickly can my donation be put to use? And then we can bolster our argument here and the impact of a gift by using things like testimonials and stories to build trust and build credibility. And again, this probably isn't a sentence. This is probably a few paragraphs, 2 to 3, if not longer. I wouldn't focus so much on what's the right length of copy. I would focus on how much copy do you need to fully articulate the value proposition. There is no perfect number, again, or perfect formula for how long your email should be. You need to have enough of the right copy to fully explain the problem, the solution, and the role the donor has to play to make an impact. Here's a couple experiments related to the value proposition. And this is just beyond email because the value proposition is pervasive throughout all of your fundraising. Version A here has limited value proposition. It says, this Christmas, change a life, shop now. Version B actually articulates what this campaign is about and what your gift can do and why shopping now could actually make an impact. It says you can change a life with a gift. This Christmas, give a gift that can meet a critical need of a child or family living in poverty. When a family receives a goat, education, water, or some other tangible solution, their lives are changed for years to come. They're leaning into value proposition, not just brand language and nice design. They're leaning into what's the heart of the call to action, what's the heart of the appeal, what's the impact that the donor can actually make. And by doing so, even just on this homepage ad, this isn't even a donation page. This is an ad on a homepage to get more people to consider giving. It led to a 35% increase in donations by just adding a couple sentences of copy. So we have to articulate the why. Why should I actually give? Secondly, as you dive into your copy, consider the perspective of your audience and who you're actually emailing. This is on a donation page, again, from Compassion International. They were reaching out to existing sponsors, people who give a recurring gift to sponsor a specific child. And they wanted to raise more funds for their Where Most Needed fund. It's kind of their catch-all fundraising bucket, because there are needs that these children have beyond just what the sponsorship can meet. So they wrote more of a generic appeal about what happens from the Where Most Needed fund, articulating the needs. But version B, they thought, can we get a little bit more focused on these specific sponsors? Can we really focus on hammering home the appeal to something that they really care about, boosting that appeal, making it really relevant? So here's what I'll show you what they said in the donation page specifically. that led to an incredible result. Number one, they thanked people for being a compassion sponsor, recognizing the role that they've played already. They said, here's something you might not know. Sponsorship doesn't actually cover every need that Wayne, who's their sponsor child, and his family and friends encounter. We need 17 more sponsors to contribute to the Where Most Needed Fund this month. So they're leaning into what they already know about the donor and what they care about to fully articulate this value proposition. Why should you, this specific type of donor, this specific segment of donor, actually make this type of gift? And then down below, they make the clear call to action. Consider giving a gift to help cover additional needs. Close at this goal of 17 sponsor gifts. And that led to a 101% increase in donations. So we have to fully articulate the value proposition from the perspective of the donor, giving them a clear problem to be solved, and then articulating the solution, and then bringing the donor in, showing them what the impact is of their gift. We've got 2 more steps. Number 8, after you've made this great argument as to why someone should give, you can add an incentive. You don't always have to have an incentive, but you can add an incentive. An incentive is not the core reason to give. It's something that might lead someone to give more or give now rather than later. So this could be a clear deadline, a clear goal. Maybe it's a free gift when you make a donation of a certain size. It could be a matching opportunity. These are all different incentives that you might use in your appeal. And I want to show you just a couple examples of how these incentives can be shown and showcased, and how it's not just enough to have one, but we have to make sure people really know it and understand it. So here's one example of this organization that had a clear goal, a clear fundraising goal, and they're measuring progress using this sort of thermometer. It's counting up the percentage of the goal that's been met, trying to boost some level of urgency in reaching their goal. Version B, they took a different approach. So version A focuses on what percentage of the goal are we at. And if I can only make, say, a $50 gift or a $100 gift, it's really hard for me to see how that makes us a little bit closer to the goal. My $100 is a drop in the bucket. So they wondered if we could position the goal a little bit differently. So instead of just having this massive financial goal, they had a donor-based goal, a number of donations per hour. So they had this little counter that said how many donations they still need this hour to reach the goal. And by changing the focus to be the number of donations versus just a percentage of a revenue goal, I actually saw a 25% increase in people clicking to go consider giving. So this is something that you might test when you're sending an email appeal related to a specific campaign, like a high urgency campaign with a goal. How about a match? Because a match is a very common incentive that we use both in year-end fundraising as well as other high urgency campaigns throughout the year. Version A in this case had no matching opportunity. Version B had a match, and it's called out in this orange sticky bar at the top. Version B, same thing, except they're positioning it a little bit differently. Version A says your donation will be matched. Version C in this case, all donations are going to be matched. What they saw was by calling out the matching opportunity using this orange sticky bar, it led to 24% increase in donations. We have to make sure that people clearly see that there is an incentive for it to actually make an impact. And here's an example of using more of a premium type of incentive where you can get a free gift in exchange for your donation, or as a thank you gift rather. So here's version A, it's just a normal donation page. Version B adds this premium offer. You can get this book when you give a gift. And by adding this type of an incentive, it led to a 92% increase in donations. None of these different examples are adding new reasons why you should give. They're not increasing the appeal of the offer or of the donation opportunity. They're just incentives. They're reasons to give a little bit more or to give now rather than later. So add an incentive, and then finally, to wrap it up, you have to give a clear call to action. Don't ask donors to do something vague like give hope or to stand with you or even to learn more. We want to clearly ask them to take the next step, which is to give and to donate. So simply ask them to donate. We also don't want to ask them to do something that's huge, that there's no way they can make a difference on right now. We don't want to ask them to end world hunger today, because my donation today isn't going to actually solve that. What's my role to play? My role to play right now is to give. So we want to clearly ask them to do so. Here's a really interesting example of how this can play out. In version A, it says, please make your year-end gift today. And version B says, stand with us, which is really common language, especially for more advocacy type of organizations. They tested these two different calls to action in an email, and what they saw was that stand with us actually led to a 91% increase in clicks. However, that's not the whole story, because it led to a 50% decrease in donations. Typically, these types of vague call to actions, whether it's stand with us or learn more, are intriguing enough for someone to click to go find out more. What does it mean to stand with you? What am I learning more about? But then when you get to the page, you haven't been set up with the right motivation or the right context to actually take the next action. So clicks is not the ultimate metric that we're trying to improve. We have to measure the next step and make sure that our clicks are leading to donations. To do so, make sure that you have a clear call to action to take the next step. Please make your gift today, donate now, don't stand with us, don't learn more. And here's one other example just around how do you frame the call to action in terms of your design. Version A here has a couple calls to action throughout the email, and they're all these big HTML buttons. Version B, same exact email, except instead of buttons, they just have what we would call the raw URL, which looks like you just copied a link and you pasted it into an email, just like a human being would do when writing an email to a friend. Again, this all comes back to how do you build an authentic communication and conversation in the inbox. By using these raw links, it led to a 65% increase in people clicking through to consider giving. So stay away from some of these designed elements, lean into the more authentic style of this plain text type of email, and make a clear call to action. Now, I want to walk you through one example, real world example of how this framework can play out. I've got several that are in the slides that you'll get later, so you can walk through some of those other examples yourself, but I want to make sure there's some time for Q&A as well. So let's look at one clear example of this problem solution type of appeal out in the real world. This organization is called Illinois Policy Institute. They are kind of a libertarian policy think tank. And typically these types of organizations is really where you can see this problem solution framework really come to light in a pretty simple way. So I'll read some of the copy out loud for you here. It says, I hope this finds you well. You probably heard our politicians talk repeatedly about taxes, raising them again and again. In the past month, they proposed to increase your income taxes and payroll taxes, add a sales tax, and even tax your sugary drinks. So for their ideal donor, their ideal audience, this is the problem. Taxes keep going up. And they know that you, the potential donor here, don't like that. That's the problem that they want to see solved and that they believe their donors want to see solved as well. It's a very clearly articulated problem. And then they move into the solution. It says the way out of this mess is through spending cuts, not through tax increases. It's a very clear solution, simply stated. It's not this kind of like big giant pie in the sky thing that needs a lot of space to articulate the solution. It's very simple. We need cuts, not increases. And then they move on to the impact, because just me or you, the average person who's not involved in crafting policy, like what can we do about it? You know, I vote, but what impact does that really make if my person doesn't win? What can I actually do? How can I make an impact here? And so here's what they say. There's something that you can do to stop this. We have a plan to balance the state budget without a tax increase, and your donation is going to help get this plan in front of every lawmaker. So I can clearly see what's my role to play. If I give, my money is going to help get this plan that if I'm the ideal donor I believe in, get it in front of people who can make a difference. That's my role to play. Moving down, they have a very clear call to action. Here's a secure link to make your donation today. And they have a raw URL right there. So here's just an example of how this can play out. And it's probably going to take some practice for you if you're new to this type of a format to take this tool. I'll give you the link to this template here in a little bit, but to take this tool next time you sit down to write an email and use it to craft your copy. It's going to take some practice. You might need to see some other examples as well. And when we send these slides out, you'll see a few different examples of some different types of emails, how you can use some story throughout your emails to build better trust with your potential donor, as well as how to add some incentives around recurring giving, because that's a different type of an ask. We have to articulate why should someone become a recurring donor rather than just a one-time donor. So I'll share a few examples with you of those that you can use as a reference next time you work on your appeal. Now, I'm going to fast forward to the end here, but using this approach compared to something a little bit more generic led to a 246% increase in donor conversion. So this is the power of using this type of a template. Version A is not a bad appeal, and it uses a lot of the tactics that we would recommend as you put email fundraising appeals together from a design perspective. But articulating the reasons to give in this format, the problem to solution format, can make a really compelling case for someone to actually give. So consider using this for your next appeal. Now, again, I'm going to fast forward here to the end. We've got a few different examples that I'll share with you, including how to craft a value proposition around a recurring donation. We'll walk through, you'll see an example around how to use a testimonial-driven appeal and a few others. But I've got a few resources that I'd love to share with you real quick, and I think we have some time for questions as well. Delaney, is that right? Do we have questions coming in? I think maybe I lost Delaney.
Yes, we have a couple questions for sure. Yep. Do we want to cover
well, here's a couple. Yeah, here's a couple resources that you can take with you to help you as a guide next time you write one of these email appeals. So you can go to this URL, you could scan this QR code and go get this template. It should be a helpful guide to walk through side by side as you're crafting your next email. So feel free to grab that, and you'll get these slides as well to get those URLs. But then secondly, I would love for you to join this course. This is brand new today. We literally just sent this out to our House File subscribers an hour or so ago. Brand new course on value proposition. I want to give you access to it for the next 30 days for free. So if you go to this URL, scan that QR code, you can dive in here, learn all about how to craft a more effective value proposition, answering this core question of why should I give to you, not just in your emails, but along the entire donor journey. So feel free to check that out. I'd love for you to join that course and let me know what you think about it. Again, scan that QR code, go to this URL, you can sign up right away. And if you want to dive deeper on that, I'll be at Cause Camp as well, talking about value propositions. So I'd love for you to join that and we can have a conversation there. That'd be wonderful.
Awesome. Okay, so there's a lot of really great questions. One of them just came in from Lynn, and I love this question. So I'm going to start with this one. Should there be a follow-up email to your initial appeal, and how often should you send that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it probably depends on what your appeal structure is. Are you sending a pretty consistent cadence of an appeal once a month? Are you in the middle of a campaign, especially in the midst of something like a year-end campaign, or maybe it's a week-long high urgency campaign? Definitely, I would have multiple emails on that journey. As we talk about building out these high urgency campaigns, typically you want multiple appeals throughout, but you also want a lot of cultivation in the middle. We don't just want to ask for money. We want to give people insight into where their donations are going. So I would lean both into cultivation and then use what you've built up in terms of goodwill, basically, with your donors and potential donors through cultivation to then make these appeals. One common tactic for a follow-up appeal that you could use, instead of going and sitting down and writing something totally brand new, one effective approach that we have seen is sending what looks just like an email forward. So you craft a little note at the top that just says, hey, wanted to make sure that you saw this note before the deadline, and then just insert your original appeal after that, because it looks like an email to a friend. If somebody hasn't gotten back to you about something, you're typically just going to hit that reply button. It's going to include the email thread, and you're going to say, hey, did you see this? So we want to mimic that type of human behavior in the inbox as we're emailing our donors.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Vanessa said that they're working on cleaning up their data so that they can use the salutation, but sometimes that isn't always correct. Is it always best to use a salutation, or don't use one if you're not sure about your data?
Yeah, that's a good question. It would not be good to call someone by someone else's name. So in that case, I would probably lean away from it. But I would really encourage you to maybe make that a priority in getting your data cleaned up so you can have that real relationship. One thing to consider too is as you have these sort of like default values, typically someone would say like, hi friend, if you don't have the first name. That's something to think about, because if I'm calling you friend, it might actually be a giveaway that I don't know you. So it might be better to just leave that off entirely. But again, the ultimate goal here would be call people by their first name and prioritize whatever you need to prioritize to make sure that you're capturing first names as people sign up or become donors so you can communicate with them like a real person.
I think Constance's question is good for this one. She asked, what's the best mailing list manager that can help you with personalization? And I think for us, we can do conditional send so that if we have the first name, it'll include the first name. If we don't, it'll send them something different.
Yeah.
Any recommendations there?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on your scale, I guess. I would assume, probably the best solution for you is most likely Mailchimp, especially if you're just starting out and trying to get a little bit more sophisticated in your email communication. Mailchimp is a great tool, has a ton of different automation opportunities and tactics like just inserting the first name. Quite honestly, if you have a tool for sending out emails that doesn't let you insert the first name, you absolutely need a new tool. So Mailchimp is a great one. If you're a little bit more sophisticated looking for a new tool, we often recommend HubSpot. It's one of our go-tos because you can do a lot of really cool stuff in terms of marketing automation, crafting some donor journey type of communication, sending cultivation based on different triggers. So I'd look at those two, Mailchimp, and then if you want to get really sophisticated, HubSpot.
Cool. Kelly said she just wanted to get a reminder about how many paragraphs are okay for explaining the problem.
As many as you need to articulate the problem. There's no perfect solution for word count or character count or paragraph count. And it's going to probably change depending on the focus of your appeal. So is it a complicated problem? You probably need more copy. If it's a really simple problem, maybe it could be said in a sentence. But I would focus on getting everything out, writing as much as you really feel is necessary to fully articulate it. And then from there, you can go back and you can cut and try to make it more succinct. But I would err on the side of more copy rather than less copy.
Mm-hmm. Camille asked if you could speak more about the impact of images, graphics, and photos compared to a lot of text. They're seeing that when there's too much text, they actually have less performance.
So I would wonder about what you mean by performance, because again, if you're less clicks, well, and that's really where the core of this is. I would encourage you to go try to track donations on that as well, because as we saw in a couple examples, just because you increase clicks doesn't actually mean that you're positively impacting your ultimate metric, which is conversions or donations for these appeals. What we've typically seen in terms of well, let's talk about the design template first. From a template perspective, there's a couple things going on. If you want to communicate like a human, you have to holistically take that approach, which means you don't have big logos at the top, you don't have painted signatures at the bottom. Just because you tweak some of the design to make it a little bit more human doesn't mean that you're going to get better results. It's got to be an all-in type of approach. So using a fully plain text style email, as well as the humanized sender and all of that stuff, most often, again, I can't guarantee results, but most often that leads to better performance. Not always in clicks, but most often with donations. And then from the images perspective, it's pretty rare that we see an image lead to a positive result. Sometimes it doesn't make an impact at all. Worst case, it makes a tremendously negative result. The problem with trying to figure out what image should I put in an email is that you never really know how someone is going to perceive what the image is saying. I mean, if an image is worth 1,000 words, how do you know that they're the right words? How do you know that what the words that come up for somebody else are the same ones that come up for you? So images can be really tricky unless you know for sure that it's really adding to that value proposition, giving clarity to the impact of the donation. But if you're going to use an image, I would always test it to be 100% sure what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Becca, I hope that answers your question about click rates versus donation rates. Brittany asked, do you recommend using link shorteners for the text link approach? She always tries to set up UTM links for analytics purposes and use shortened links so the URL isn't gigantic.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I typically don't use a link shortener. I'm just making it look like the normal URL. If you use like Bitly or something, people do that for sure, but it does maybe tend to skew more towards marketers do that, and not so much just your everyday person in Gmail. So I would test that. That'd be an interesting approach to test. But secondly, just putting the raw URL in there, you're not getting rid of the tracking. It's a text link basically that is just the full URL, but then behind the scenes, the actual URL target that you're going to still includes UTM tracking, so you can track the performance of your emails.
Mm-hmm. Holly said they currently send out one large newsletter a month and they're considering doing 2 smaller ones instead. Is there a clear winner between these 2 options?
It depends on what you're measuring. I would probably lean towards sending more emails with less things in them. Typically what we see is a newsletter that's got a bunch of stuff in it. It's really hard for someone to decide, what's really important, what should I take action on? We've seen an interesting approach to newsletters recently that take a lot of the design out of just a newsletter and just have a few quick bullet points of links. We've got a few experiments like that just have a quick little intro note. Hey, just wanted to check in with you today. Thought you would find these resources interesting. Bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. Have a great day. And that's it. And that often leads to more engagement. So that's a tactic to try. But you can very easily split out your full newsletter into a series of different cultivation emails, which is a great way to get more cultivating content in front of your potential donors more often. And we always see that more cultivation leads to greater giving in the long term.
Nice. Lola, this makes me laugh. Lola said, how do you address the dreaded mistake in an email that you just sent out?
Can I tell you a quick story?
Yes.
So, I have made that mistake many times. I'm sure everybody on this call who has sent an email before has made that type of a mistake where your first name tag is broken and you say, hi, first name, and you see that go out and then you just melt. It's a horrible experience. It's also a critical experience for anyone in marketing and fundraising to go through because you learned a lot from it. We sent out what was intended to be a very personal email from our founder here at Next After. His name is Tim. And I helped craft this email. And the intention of this email was to check in with people who hadn't registered to go to our summit yet. And to basically be a really warm, friendly, hey, I was checking the list. I saw you weren't on it. How can we make sure that you can make it to Neo Summit this year? It only works if it's believable. But it went out and it had a broken first name tag. So it said, hi, first name. And then from there, you lose the entire personal feel from it. So what we did after, melting and cringing and feeling like the world was ending, we sent out kind of a tongue-in-cheek sort of email later on that wasn't like an apology, we're so sorry. It actually leaned into it as a joke. And so in a few cases, it just said hi, first name, glad to check in with you, first name, intentionally saying first name, first name, first name a bunch of times, then having a little apology, and then making it feel very human and admitting error. And that is one of the best emails that we have ever sent in terms of performance. The amount of people that came up to me at that summit that year and said, hey, this email is what led me to actually say, yeah, I'm going to check this conference out, is incredible. So I would lean into it. I would embrace it. I wouldn't get so caught up in making it absolutely perfect. We obviously want to send high quality emails that people can trust and trust who we are. But if you make a mistake, leaning into this personal approach actually helps you out a lot because you can be authentic and human with your donors.
Mm-hmm. We've all been there. It's the honest truth.
Absolutely. It's like a rite of passage, I think.
Yeah. Christina asked, should you always send different appeals to current versus lapsed donors?
I would never use the word always. It's something that you can test into. I think a really easy mistake to make in terms of segmentation is going way too far, way too fast, and assuming that more segmentation leads to better results. I think of an experiment that I ran at an organization I worked for a number of years ago, where we were sending out personalized emails to basically every different region that their broadcast portion of the organization would reach. So they had these 13 different station managers for the different stations, and they wanted to send from these local voices and assumed that that would lead to better results. But during a high urgency campaign, what that meant was if we're going to send 10 emails during the campaign, they all had to be personalized for each of these different voices. And so we had 13 times 10, that's 130 emails to set up. And then you've got these personalities that want to have it tweaked for their voice and have their perspective put in. It's a crazy amount of work. And what we ended up testing was we can send these personalized local voices versus just sending from a national program host. And what we saw was that it actually made no difference in donations whatsoever. So we could say, we don't need to send these 130 emails. We can just send the 10. That's going to save us a ridiculous amount of time and let us go test into more meaningful things. So I wouldn't assume that more segmentation works unless you have tested into it and you know that it's going to lead to better results.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, it looks like we are at the end of time. And those are all the questions that we're going to be able to get through today. But if you didn't get your question answered, feel free to reach out to us directly at info@nonprofithub.org. If you are joining us at Cause Camp, as Nathan mentioned, make sure to check out his breakout session on how to answer the most important question, why should I give to you? Thank you so much, Nathan, and thank you to everyone who joined us for today's session. Thank you to our platform partner, FireSpring, and to the team over at Next After for being the sponsor of today's webinar. Keep your eye out for the recording and a full list of resources that will help you with writing the best email, and a member of the Do More Good team will contact the winner of today's webinar for their free pass to Cause Camp. Please enjoy your day, everyone, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.